Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Clocked In with the Press, hosted at Altman Studios in Brentwood, California. In this podcast, we highlight news and sports stories, as well as members and organizations in the community that deserve your attention. For more news stories and updates on Contra Costa County, you can go to our website at thepress.net or our Twitter and Instagram at PressClockedIn. This is your host, Kaitlyn Gleeson, clocking in. So today we get to talk to John Fox, a stand-up comedy producer who is bringing a comedy show to Antioch, California in early April. John, thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
We are also going to be having Brian Altman, our sound technician, engineer, and magician, coming in to talk with us.
Thanks for having me, Kaitlyn.
Of course. So I want to say this. If I don't laugh during this, I'm going to be kind of disappointed.
Well, you're going to be disappointed because I'm not that funny.
Well, you know, we're off to a great start. So first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, my background was in journalism, and back in 1977, I was working as the program director of the San Francisco Press Club, which had a beautiful building across the street from the Olympic Club in downtown San Francisco, and my job was to bring activities to the membership. And one of the members said, "Hey, there's these comedians out in North Beach. You ought to go invite them to come here and entertain us." And so I went out there with my Yves Saint Laurent suit on, and there's Robin Williams and Dana Carvey, and
wow!
And they're performing in a basement. There was no audience; they were their own audience. And this was just coming out of the Vietnam War, and it was sort of like, is it okay to laugh now? And I met the producer of the workshop, and he had this idea for a comedy competition. And he hadn't had anybody walk in there in an Yves Saint Laurent suit before. So he saw me and he made a beeline to me. And long story short, we ended up forming a partnership because I had a lot of media contacts and I was a comedy fan. The rest was history. Robin Williams came in second in 1976. That was the year before I actually got involved. And the first year I was involved, Dana Carvey won. The second year I was involved, Marsha Warfield from Night Court won.
Wow.
And a few years later, Ellen DeGeneres came in second and Sinbad came in first. So we have a great tradition of discovering stars of tomorrow. And here we are at the 46th annual rendition about to happen in September. What brings me out here is I'm juggling the schedule, which is a 4-week-long period in September. And one thing that contestants said last year was it's too much driving. And that was even before what's happening now with gas prices. And I'm trying to get it closer into the city. So Antioch looks like, but also we had to have a certain amount of distance between each venue. So it's really quite a crossword puzzle. And but Antioch is looking good for a new location for us. So I did a show in the interim between the actual comedy competition, which happens in September, I do these best of the comedy competition shows with alumni from the event. And we did one on Martin Luther King weekend at the El Campanil, and it was successful. And now we have this next one coming up on April 2nd with Dennis Gaxiolo headlining. He's from Latin Kings of Comedy. He's a past finalist from the comedy competition. So it looks like we're building something here, and I'm real excited about it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really, really awesome. So before I get to talking about the actual event on April 2nd, I am curious about what are some of the greatest challenges of your job as a comedy producer?
The greatest?
Some of the greatest challenges.
Oh, the challenges, well, to get along with the comedians.
Everyone's got an opinion.
Buddy, it's the same issue here in a recording studio too, is getting along with the musicians.
Yeah, getting along with the podcast host.
These are people who are naturally rebellious, and that's why they got into comedy, because they have a hard time holding down a job or finishing college or whatever. And I'm the man. So I'm basically sympathetic to them up to a point to where they're destroying my endeavor. That's why I have to draw the line. And there have been attempts of people to mess with what I'm doing. But generally, I'm very supportive of them. I love watching. I never feel better than when I'm watching a show and there's a full crowd and I'm laughing. And so at this point, I think I am the most venerable live comedy producer in the country. I've been doing this since 1977. And enjoying it very much. It's kept me young. And then, of course, negotiating deals. But after a while, there's certain expectations that depend on how big a place is, and you get an idea of what the market will bear. And hopefully cut a deal.
Wow, sounds straight out of like a HBO show or something. Okay, so would you say one of the highlights for you, or one of the main highlights, is when you get to watch the shows and see your projects
Undoubtedly.
come to be
Once
successful?
it starts, it's out of my control, and that's a mixed blessing because, people say, well, we don't want to hear this. And I'm like, well, once they're up there, and the worst thing I can do is tell them not to do something.
Because then they say bet.
That's the kiss of death. They're going to definitely do it.
You have to use reverse psychology. Be like, do this.
Yeah.
Please do this.
Yeah,
thing.
or don't. Yeah, exactly. And it's so true. And I could give you some good stories on that one. Some of the corporate gigs that I did when they, the poor executive assistant who has to put together the event at the big sales conference, and she's sitting there sweating, and I'm being told no F word usage, and we're both sitting there together watching a debacle go on. And then the act gets off stage and goes, well, that was good, huh? Because he makes them laugh, right? And I go, well, yeah, other than you use the F word 50 times and you weren't supposed to say it at all.
They said, oh, I thought that was a challenge.
He goes, I did?
Sometimes they just don't know.
Exactly.
All right, so this does bring me to talking about the Best of Comedy competition on April 2nd. So first of all, how many comedians are going to be in the lineup?
It depends on how big the audience is. Well, we'll guarantee at least three. But, 3 is the typical number of comedians you'll see when you go to a comedy club. There'll be the host, what they call the feature act, which / opening act, and then the headliner. I do try and distinguish these shows by doing 4 acts. I think it makes them special. But it's a cost consideration. So right now we're in the gray area on that question.
Got it.
But I have someone in mind for the 4th act if and ticket sales are perking up, so hopefully we'll have 4 acts.
Okay, here the people, do your community a service.
That's
Get
right.
that 4th
If you
act
want
over
4,
there.
buy that ticket now.
Okay. So in terms of content, actually, since you were talking about, comedians who tend to curse sometimes, would this event be considered family friendly, or should parents leave their kids at home?
Well, that's one thing that's great about comedy when you have that. And I raised 3 children, and I know you get that certain mid-teens and they'll barely talk to you. And comedy is a great way of breaking down that wall for parents to bring their teenage kids to these shows, because the kids are usually pretty interested in them. So I recommend it up to a point, but I would say not below 15. So although this particular show, I was actually thinking about it coming over here, I don't think we're going to have any blue material, but it's just like I say, once they're up there.
You can never be too careful.
But Dennis Gaxiola, he was a career military. He was stationed at Travis Air Force Base for 20 years. And then he's active in his church. I mean, he really is a clean comedian.
He's a stand-up guy.
Yeah, Chad Opitz is the feature act, and he's really crazy, but very unique, very unusual, very physical, does cartwheels and stuff, does a big, long ode to Coors Light, which I love. But again, I can't think of anything on the blue side. And Matt Gubser is the only one I'm wondering about. He lives in Concord. He's the host. Very dry sense of humor. Talks a lot about being a single dad that raised 2 girls. But again, nothing comes to mind. So I think I can say this is going to be a nice PG-13 show.
Got it. So as long as you don't tell them to not curse.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, there's that 4th act. But the first I have in mind, I think, would be fine.
So since this is a, it's called the Best of Comedy competition, I kind of have a few questions about that there. So first of all, is how were the competitors for the competition chosen? Like, did they have to audition? Did you kind of know of them beforehand and reach out?
It's a combination of they send in applications, and at this point, it's pretty easy for them to send us a clip on email. They pay a $15 application fee, and I have a talent director who looks at all those.
Got it.
Poor soul. But and so
well, I mean, it's a lot of fun to look at all those audition
tapes. It can be, but also you're really amazed that this person really thinks that he should be in this event. But and then in addition to that, we do auditions, and I travel around. I try and keep a finger on we're looking for the new talent. We're trying to avoid that gunslinger that comes in and wants to grab that $7,500 first prize, and we want to discover the stars of tomorrow, like we did, with the people that I mentioned earlier. but at the same time, we're putting on a show. So it's got to be really entertaining. So you have to at least have 5 good minutes to get into this thing.
Got it. Okay.
But if people are interested, we have SanFranciscoComedyCompetition.com, and there's a lot of information there as well as the application form.
Okay. So you said that I'm guessing there's only one victor here, and then they win $7,500?
They do. Yeah, so it's a $25,000.
Are
you thinking about it now?
I'm in the wrong field.
Well, I mean, I thought that was a lot of money until I was down at the tennis tournament in Indian Wells last week, and it's like $14 million or something.
For tennis?
Yeah. So
that requires me to do cardio, though.
It was like, I don't even know if I can mention the $20,000 now, but I was feeling pretty good about it up to that point. But yeah, that would be the equivalent of 3 really good club gigs headlining, and it is a 3-week commitment from beginning to end if you were going to win it. But we always tell them just getting in is an accomplishment, and it's a great workshop for the ones that don't advance, but they still learn a lot about, because we go out of our way to put them in front of different types of audiences each night, so they have to adjust. I mean, I know the people in San Francisco think they're tragically hip, but they're always performing in front of the same kind of audience. You bring them out, into Antioch or Carmel.
Very different audience.
Yeah, exactly. And they have to make that adjustment. And that's what the business is. You want to be a professional comedian.
You have to adapt.
You can't start telling me how tired you are, because Brian Regan's out there, 300 nights a year, traveling 500 miles every night to a new venue. And that's what the business is,
That's not a lot of weekends.
Love Brian Regan. Yeah. Is this so? April 2nd is a competition?
No,
Yes.
It's a best of the comedy cup. So these are alumni. These are people. We have a past finalist in Dennis Gaxiola, and we have 2 past semifinalists in Chad Opitz and Matt Gupser.
Cool. Okay,
so
so
this
is like the all-star team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hall of Famers almost.
Okay, that's cool.
Still under consideration for the Hall of Fame.
To be determined.
That's determined on career development, people always asking, how did Robin Williams come in second, and the poor guy that came in first, I mean, he just disappeared.
No one knows who he is.
You're the guy that beat Robin Williams,
like,
that's
like, I'm really about to expose my 13-year-old self here, but that's like how One Direction got 3rd on X Factor, and no one remembers who got 1st or 2nd that year because One Direction went on tour still, and everybody just remembers them.
Well, we kind of have a tradition of the second place people doing better than the champions, because they're maybe a little more futuristic, a little ahead of what they're doing is going to be appreciated more in a couple more years. So we have people like Robin Williams coming in second, and Ellen DeGeneres coming in second, and then people like Mark Pitt can feel like, it's okay, I came in second, because I'm in that.
So first place is like a curse.
The kiss of death.
Oh no, I got
not
first.
Actually.
Second place is the real first place.
Well, we make it sound that way when we're giving them half as much prize money.
It's a really great sales pitch, to be honest.
You're like, you don't want to win, which means you don't think
you're
going to win.
You
You're
lucky
ahead
person.
of it. So you hosted this event before in January, I believe.
Well, we did one of the best of shows in January, and we did it on Martin Luther King weekend. So we had 2 past winners, and we're trying to attract a diversified audience, because when we come back with the contestants, that's going to be we try and fill every peg with the total array of types of performers.
Yeah, you want everyone to be able to relate to the shows.
Right. So, and Antioch is a very diversified community, so we hope that we'll get attendance from all elements of the Antioch community.
Oh yeah, I know there's a mural that was recently painted in Antioch. I think it was earlier this year or end of last year, but there was an event for it on Veterans Day, and they talked about the importance of this mural showcasing how diverse Antioch really is, because there's just such a wide array of different people. So I think trying to aim for people to be included in that, I think, is like a really, really good goal. So on the same note, you informed me beforehand that you produced the San Francisco Standup Comedy Competition, and you were talking a little bit about the differences between performing out here and performing in San Francisco. So tell me about that event.
Well, I mean, it was the catalyst for the entire renaissance in stand-up comedy, because this fellow named Frank Kidder, he was ex-military, and one night he's the founder of it, and he was driving over 100 miles an hour, and he ran into a tree, and the tree died, and he lived. And he
Oh my gosh.
He was in the hospital bed for months, and one day someone passed away, I guess, and he woke up, and there was an empty bed near him, and someone else in the ward cracked a joke, and they all started laughing. And right there, he said, I'm going to dedicate my life to making people laugh.
Oh, wow.
And so he's the one that started, like I say, it was a very tenuous moment, because is it okay to laugh? We'd gone through this Vietnam War that had been 10 years of very strident, people in the streets, and no one was. George Carlin and Richard Pryor were able to succeed, but they were like it, because they had the right social message. So anyhow, Frank started getting these shows together, and he's the one I met that night at the intersection on Union Street in North Beach, who had the idea to do the comedy competition. And it just took off. I mean, it was just amazing. But my wife and I, it was amazing. We realized we were prepared for this. I had been a reporter at the Oakland Tribune. I'd majored in journalism. I'd worked for an advertising agency. I was working at the press club, so I knew all these media people. She was working at the San Francisco Sports and Boat Show, which is an annual event. So it was like in its 40th year, we'd been exposed to the idea once you get something going annually, it can sustain itself through a lifetime. And so when we got this chance, we just ran with it with Frank, and we got it all organized. And some of those early venues were kind of crazy, but it just took off. The late John Wasserman at the Chronicle gave us a lot of press, and people just came out. And there for a while, it was kind of the new intelligentsia movement, but it quickly deteriorated into toilet humor. But for a while, it was pretty.
Usually does at one point.
It was pretty popular for a while.
If you don't check that box, you're not doing comedy.
But no, it just took off. And so out of that, I convinced the owner of a club called the Old Waldorf to open the Punchline nightclub. And that was one of the first nightclubs out there. And then eventually we got into publishing a magazine called Just for Laughs, and we documented there were like 500 comedy clubs at the very height of the movement. Then it kind of pulled back like everything does, and I think maybe there's 100 to 200 of them now. But yeah, that was the beginning of the whole thing.
Wow. So since, this is a annual event, how did COVID kind of play a role in having these events?
The only good thing about COVID for me was I got to drop the annual out of the title because we were not able to do it in 2020. So last year was the 45th San Francisco stand-up comedy competition, which I thought was a lot snappier than the 45th annual. But last year even we were just on eggshells, expecting to be canceled at all times. And we even had a situation where, I don't know what you think about these county health departments and their dictates, but I think sometimes they get a little overzealous. And one night they actually dictated that the acts had to wear masks while they were performing.
On stage.
And which is impossible, right? And they're 20 feet away from the audience, and who came up with this? And, I won't tell you where this was, but the owner of the theater talked to the sheriff, and he said he had no intention of coming over there and busting us. So we violated it. But I think it was just one of the things we had to cope with. But ultimately, we ended up with 4 of the 5 finalists being from the local area, and some of them from out here. We had Orion Levine from Martinez and Chelsea Birch from Benicia. That was part of the reason that got me looking out here. And it's good when you have local finalists, but we put on a very fair competition, and it's an Olympic style scoring system, and let the chips fall as they may. But deep inside, we want to have locals do well because we're
you're trying to help the little guy
Well, the
grow
locals
to
too, you know.
not be a little guy anymore.
Well, we want to develop the local scene. Continue to develop it.
Oh, I'd love a local scene. I love comedy shows, but I only ever get to watch them on Netflix. This is not sponsored.
This will be different.
Where is this event going to be on April 2nd?
Okay. Thanks for reminding me. It's going to be at the Campanil Theatre in Antioch.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
On April 2nd. And if you go to the Campanil website, you get to pick your own seat. They have a real cool advanced ticket sales situation there. Or you can just come. But the sooner you get it, the better seat you'll get.
So if a person does want to buy tickets to the competition, what is the best way to do that? Is it at the El Campanil website? Is it a different website for you guys, or where do they want to get the tickets?
It's all the El Campanil website, and that's the best way. And I don't believe they have any extra service charge, but I can't say for sure. We could look up the phone number and put that out, and people could call if they have any questions.
Brian's on it.
Brian's on it. All right.
The guy in the chair. I'm handling it.
Like I said, can't run it without him.
Well, isn't he the one that determined that the Russians were going to invade Ukraine? I think he's on top of things.
I can't even believe they listened to me. And it's really bad.
Oh my God.
It was like I was kidding, you guys.
You said, that was a joke. So while he's looking that up, you've told me you told Jake in an email, and then Jake sent it to me, so I would actually know everything about you, how you've seen over 50,000 shows, not acts, shows. Yes. With multiple acts in them.
At one time at the real heyday of comedy, I was booking over a dozen shows.
Oh, wow.
Including 3 punchlines, and then I had my own show my own club in Seattle, which unfortunately I lost during 2020. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I have seen a lot of comedy.
So what have been some of your favorite people that you've seen?
I like the people that are thought-provoking, that have unusual talent. It's hard to get me to laugh. People will, watch me during the show, and I'm kind of like, and then... and they're amazed at what I find funny because I'm jaded. Let's face it. After 50,000 shows.
Oh, hit me with the dark humor. I'm ready for it.
Please no airplanes, no 7-Eleven. But no people that I like. It's funny because I just deal exclusively with the people who've been in this event who I can still afford. So someone like Bent Wasper, no one ever heard of him, but he's amazing and. He has one bit about when he and his wife go canoeing with a young couple that's very lovey-dovey. They just got married. And he contrasts how they're behaving and his desire to hit his wife over the head with the oar as they're going down the...
Oh, no.
Yeah, because he wants to kill his wife. So this is the kind of dark humor. Well, that's great. A great example to use, right? But no, he's fantastic. The one I feel like we really saved for the rest of the country was Bobby Slayton. Because Bobby was so irascible, and he'd been banned from a couple of other clubs, and we installed him as the resident host at the Punchline, and he really got his chops together and went on through a fantastic career. But again, no target is unturned, basically. No, that was his saving grace, is that he was rude on every topic.
I see.
At one point, someone made a complaint against him to the San Francisco Human Rights Commission, and they were told Bobby Slayton gets a pass, which I thought was way cool.
I mean, yeah, I get a pass for being funny. That's pretty good.
As all comedians should.
Well, yeah, it's a chance to escape and not take things too seriously. But the fact of the matter is, if you might hit the wrong button on somebody, you might hit something that's very tender and sensitive, and you might have and they know they're going to be approached afterwards with people that are outraged, and they feel like, oh, this shouldn't be happening, but it's understandable.
One of those you can't please everyone type of jobs. No, but when you mention, people who would watch you and look for your reaction in the back, it makes me think about how when I was younger and I did, debate in high school, my dad would sit in the back and watch us, right? But the thing is he would actually nod his head to what our opponents would say. And then he'd shake his head to what I would say.
Oh, my goodness.
And I would get so heated in these debate rounds that I would win because I got so aggressively mad. And then my dad would be like, you did great.
Was he ex-military?
No, but my brother was military.
But no, that sounds like my dad too, because I would play. He would pick me up after a baseball game, and he goes, "What position did you play? Left out?" And he thought that was hilarious. But
I played left field.
And but it is tough love.
No, he was super supportive, but it was always a fun thing that he just did to mess with us.
Well, that's a popular topic is the getting applause, accolades for participating as compared to winning, and nowadays a lot of it's just participation. And I remember one time I said to somebody, if my son was playing Little League, I would say, once you get a hit, I'll come and watch.
You know what? My dad told me that once I got 3 strikes in a game, he would buy me a bowling ball. I did it one time, got the bowling ball, and then I quit.
Oh, you got a bowling ball?
I have a bowling ball. It's somewhere deep in the closet. But what was that number for the El Campanil Theatre?
Okay, so it's $30 for an orchestra ticket at least, and they have a $1.05 processing fee and a $3 preservation fee.
Oh, preservation.
So like $35?
Yeah, it's $34.05 on here.
I'm just doing the extra math.
I'm just guessing, but you probably escape the processing fee if you just go there and get the ticket. I think they have their box office open during the day.
Sure.
But do you have the number there? I should call.
Yeah, you can find it on Google, surely. But I'll pull it up anyways. I'm sure it'll cost more in gas to get down there now to buy that ticket, though. So
please, you don't have to mention that.
I don't want to think about how much I pay in gas for my car.
I'm just saying, any person's probably going to spend $2 to get for gas instead of the $1 processing fee. So
yeah.
Oh, I got you. Unless they go right before the show.
Or you run there. Anyway.
No, just pay the processing fee. Get the pre-purchases, and we'll get a 4th person on the lineup.
We do. We want a 4th person.
Get that 4th person in there.
Keep your eyes on the horizon. But anyways, John.
And that phone number, by the way, for the El Campanil is 925-757-9500. That number, again, for our listeners at home is 925-757-9500.
Today.
Call today. Tickets going fast.
Anyways, but before I end the episode,
is
there anything else that you would like to say?
Well, just that I wanted to pretend like I haven't decided to bring the comedy competition to El Campanil, and it was mandatory that people turn out for this event if they really wanted. But I am going to bring it. This is going to happen. But please come out and support the comedians, and They'll make you happy, especially in these hard times. And I actually wrote an article about really feeling how vital it was to put on these comedy shows during COVID. And if you want to read that, because I still have ink in my veins from when I worked at the Tribune, that's on the San Francisco's comedycompetition.com website.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
That was a fast 30 minutes. Wow.
That's it for today's episode of Clocked In with the Press. I appreciate all of you taking the time to listen in. For more information and updates on Contra Costa County, visit our website at thepress.net or our Twitter and Instagram at PressClockedIn. Links to the event at El Campanil Theatre will be in the description of the episode, so make sure to check it out. I look forward to speaking with you all further, so make sure to tune in to the next episode. This is Kaitlyn Gleeson, clocking out.